so much as a warning. Life hangs in the balance. Human endeavor turns to chaos. And within seconds, nothing will ever be the same. Ever.
You've got a front row seat to some of the most outrageous scenes of destruction ever captured. Cameras roll in Central America as an illegal propane plant explodes in a series of devastating fireballs. And a pro racer walks away after his dragster disintegrates around him at 130 miles per hour. It's the most intense half hour on television, and it's called Destroyed in Seconds.
Race fans at the Wichita International Raceway expect high-octane thrills on the quarter-mile track. What they don't expect is this. July 2002, drag racers compete in the Wichita Summer Nationals. Behind the wheel of this 1,700 horsepower dragster is Jerry Yeoman, a 25-year racing veteran with 14 national wins. Today, Jerry's won every round, and now he's in the finals. Instead of racing, Jerry asks his opponent to split the winnings and walk away, but his rival wants to race. They rev their engines at the starting line. Just before the halfway mark, Jerry's left tire hits an oil slick, causing it to lose traction. The car takes a sharp turn into the guardrail and bursts into flames. The racer's tires and other debris fly towards spectators who scramble for safety. After flipping over 18 times, the car slams upside down against the rail and comes to a stop. Spectators rush to help and try to pull Jerry out of the smoldering wreckage. Jerry survives the accident with a broken collarbone, and despite this fiery crash, he continues to race today. The morning of December 16, 2008, the town of Cuzcatlan in El Salvador. A series of propane explosions rocks the neighborhood of La Chima. Hundreds of residents are awakened by at least 10 separate blasts. These blasts are from a home occupied by a man, his wife, and their young daughter. The man stores and sells propane tanks. This morning, while he's transferring gas from one tank to another, propane begins to leak from a loose hose. The gas fills his house. Then, when the propane reaches the flame of a portable stove, it ignites. The resulting fire quickly spreads, building in heat and intensity, which become too much for other tanks stored in the house. One after another, they begin to explode. The explosions and fire damage 9 neighboring houses. But only the propane seller's home is completely destroyed. The man's wife and daughter are able to escape without injury. He suffers burns and is taken to the hospital. It turns out the man is operating his propane business illegally. It's Memorial Day weekend in Red Bluff, California. Spectators gather to watch the International Hot Boat Association drag race. These top fuel hydros are the fastest and most expensive racing boats, costing upwards of $300,000. Mark Atkinson, a 22-year racing veteran, modifies his boat's aerodynamics to make it even faster. It's a decision that will change his life. At 200 miles per hour, air gets under the boat, lifting the 2,500-pound vessel into the sky and flipping it over. The hydro slams into the water. The safety capsule ejects as the boat is torn to pieces. Mark opens the canopy to escape, causing the capsule to tip over. It begins to sink with Mark still inside. For this very reason, opening the canopy is against regulations. Boaters are supposed to wait for rescuers to remove them from the capsule. Mark's concussed and disoriented. Momentary panic leads him to make this life-threatening mistake. A rescue boat rushes in and divers take to the water. Seconds later, Mark surfaces. He's placed on a stretcher and rushed to shore. After recovering from his head injury, Mark retires from racing. He has little memory of the crash that ended his career. A large plume of smoke rises from the island of Bocareio, 200 yards off Rio de Janeiro. The island is home to the Brazilian Navy's largest ammunition depot. The explosion comes from a bunker housing 3 tons of munitions, including gunpowder, grenades, and artillery shells. The blast can be felt over 10 miles away. The initial explosion triggers a domino effect, igniting other munition stockpiles. As night falls, the explosions continue to light up the sky. Nervous residents pour out into the streets. News helicopters capture the flaming storage warehouse. But flying missiles and debris keep them at bay. The explosions and fire continue for over 5 hours, while officials try desperately to evacuate the wounded.
Esta moça passa mal.
The next day, the full scope of the destruction can be seen. The majority of the naval base is in ruins, and the surrounding area is littered with spent and live munitions. Although 37 homes and apartments are destroyed and 23 people are injured, no one is killed. Military officials conclude that the initial fire was caused by the spontaneous ignition of gunpowder being stored in the depot. That fire then sparked the chain reaction that rocked the tiny island of Bocareio. They're called funny cars, but there's nothing funny about the speeds these odd-looking machines reach. They can hit 100 miles per hour in 2 seconds, and up to 230 miles per hour before deploying their parachutes at the finish line. That is, if everything works out as the driver plans. Today at the Sacramento Raceway, things aren't going to work out as planned for Hans Kussel. Hans hits the accelerator and gets off to a good start, but he won't make it to the finish line. It's race day at Northern California's Sacramento Speedway. Drivers of funny car dragsters are geared up and ready to compete in the fastest races in auto racing. Top dragsters can hit the finish line less than 6 seconds after they take off. With funny cars, there's no such thing as fuel economy. They get about 110 feet to the gallon. When drag racers like Hans Kussel spin their tires before a race, it softens the rubber and helps them grip the track. During the race, the tires leave a thin trail of rubber on the pavement, all the way to the finish line. It's called the groove. And keeping their tires in that groove helps drivers maintain traction. Racer Hans Kussel has high hopes for his dragster. With 33 years of experience, Hans is prepared for anything except what happens next. Hans careens out of control and slams into the infield fence. His funny car explodes in a ball of flames and virtually disintegrates as it slides across the finish line. The problem for Hans? The track had been cleaned before his race, diminishing the effect of the groove. When his wheels slip out of the groove, he loses control. As he hits the fence, one of the posts ruptures his fuel tank, setting the stage for a spectacular explosion. The car is totaled. But Hans is fortunate. He walks away from this crash uninjured. It's been called the deadliest road in California. Angeles Crest is a windy mountain highway north of Los Angeles that's popular with motorcyclists. This is the view through Mikado Sullivan's blue windshield as he and 10 of his buddies cruise up the crest. After a morning of riding, the bikers pull over for a break. They all stop, except one. A newcomer to the group doesn't get word that they all plan to stop. At full speed, he clips a bike off camera, then slams directly into Orlando Pablo. Mikado turns off his engine, jumps from his bike, and runs to help.
Hey, we need help! Somebody go back!
Somebody go back, go get an ambulance, how bad?
3 riders are down on a remote highway miles from help.
Sure. Sit down, dude. Huh? Better sit down. You might be in shock.
2 of the men somehow escape injury, but Orlando is out cold. Finally, help arrives both on the ground and from the air.
Can you feel your toes? Okay. Can you move your fingers? Give me one at a time. Okay? Your legs? Easy.
Minutes later, Orlando is airlifted to the hospital. Despite the severity of the crash, he suffers only a concussion. In the busy port of Poole Harbor, Dorset, England, motorists appreciate the reliable service of the chain-pulled auto ferry. But on one unusual day, this 100-foot-long vessel becomes the scene of a life and death drama. A freak ebb tide sends a small sailboat crashing against the side of the ferry. An ebb tide pulls water away from the shore and out to sea. As the strong current hits the ferry, it has nowhere to go but under it, sucking the sailboat down along with it. Aware of the emergency, the ferry captain stops about 50 feet from shore. A 72-year-old woman, her husband, and a friend remain trapped on their sailboat. A passing boater attaches a line to the floundering craft. As he tries to pull the vessel to safety, the sailboat begins to take on water. The tow line slips off, and the swift tide consumes the sailboat and its 3 passengers. In Poole Harbor, Dorset, England, a sailboat is trapped in the treacherous pull of a freak ebb tide. The powerful current threatens to suck the small vessel under a 100-foot-long auto ferry. On board the sailboat is a 72-year-old woman, her husband, and a friend. A passing boater tries to tow the sailboat to safety, but the tide is too strong. The tow line slips off the cleat, and the sailboat is pulled back towards the ferry. Moments later, the tide sucks the 3 passengers and their entire boat under the ferry. The 2 men surface, clinging to the ferry's hull, but the woman is nowhere to be seen. A ferry worker tosses a flotation device to the men. But it's quickly carried away by the tide. Crewmen on the ferry drop life preservers, but the violent, churning waters keep them from grabbing hold. Rescuers in a dinghy move in. They struggle for several minutes, trying to hoist the men aboard, but the swift current pins the dinghy against the ferry. Men on another rescue boat toss a line to the dinghy, which is then towed away from the ferry. Luckily, the men on the dinghy have a firm hold on the woman's husband, and they're able to pull him to safety. But the passenger is still clinging to the ferry's hull. Finally, a ferry crewman manages to help the passenger pull himself out of the water. He's shocked and exhausted, but uninjured. The historic 1920s-era sailboat is completely destroyed. As for the 72-year-old woman, she surfaces on the other side of the ferry and is rescued injury-free. Despite the ordeal, the woman says she has no qualms about getting back on a sailboat in Poole Harbor again. Seoul, South Korea. This restaurant suffers extensive damage when it's invaded by a gang bent on destruction. The perpetrators? 3 giant elephants. It all started at this amusement park. A group of Asian elephants are performing for a delighted crowd. Then, one of the normally tame and extremely friendly elephants gets spooked and tries to run into the street. The trainers stand no chance of stopping the 10,000-pound animal as it breaks through the gates and tramples a garden. In the chaos, 5 other elephants follow and all begin running through the streets. Shocked pedestrians look on as handlers try to wrangle the elephants. One by one, each is rounded up. One is tied to a tree and given food. Another is leashed to a pole in a parking lot. Another is secured in an alley. As the 3 recaptured elephants are walked back to the park, the remaining 3 seem to take out their aggression on a local restaurant. As bystanders scramble for safety, all 3 force their way towards the kitchen. A waitress cornered in a closet is barely able to escape. After 5 hours, trainers finally manage to calm the animals down. Wooden crates have to be brought in to transport them back to the park. None of the elephants are injured. One pedestrian is sent to the hospital with minor injuries. The restaurant is closed for 2 weeks while the damage is repaired. When it reopens, the owners cash in on its notoriety by sporting a new theme and a new name. Roughly translated, the place where the elephants came.
They call their program Plowshare.
Operation Plowshare. A series of U.S. nuclear test explosions. The purpose? To see if nuclear bombs can be used for underground excavation. July 1962. 75 miles northwest of Las Vegas, Nevada. A location known as Area 10. Dozens of workers are on hand to lower a 104 kiloton nuclear bomb 635 feet into the ground. 10 a.m., July 6th. Project Sudan unfolds. Within seconds, the 104 kiloton nuclear bomb detonates. The blast is 8 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It creates a crater 320 feet deep. The height of a 32-story building with a 1,280-foot diameter. The test results are successful, but the project is abandoned due to high levels of radiation released in the air.
I'm Ron Pitts, and we'll see you next time on Destroyed in Seconds.